high and high when I lay my burden down. Every round, high and high when I lay. Over yon when I lay. No more trouble over.
Oh, back from when television used to actually have bluesmen on it in the first part of the 60s into the mid 60s. Yeah. Well, greetings and welcome from Tbilisi, Georgia. This is Bern. And we meet again. Because I gotta finish this thing, and we're getting closer. I'll give you an update on how we're doing in a moment. It looks good, but at the same time, there's a lot of like stuff pushing me down. I've also had some good news, and sometimes, I start looking at this and I say, what's going to happen here? What if I run into a problem there? And so all these different things, but we'll get there. Meanwhile, if you happen to have just arrived here and don't know what's going on, my name is Bern, and I might as well live on Mars. I live in Tbilisi, Georgia, which is not someplace between Savannah and Macon. It is in the Caucasus Mountains, which are two chains in which in the middle lies the country of Georgia. And one of the chains is like a wall that just goes straight up. And it goes up to about 5,000 meters, 15,000 feet. The other side is this weird rolling series of volcanic mountains that goes up. Like, for instance, if I hike I'm right next to the side of what some people might call a hill, but we're already pretty high up here. I think we're about 1,500 feet or so here. And if you start climbing up there, you think, oh, I've gotten to the top of this mountain ridge. And then you look and go, oh, there's another one further on. So you climb to the top of that one, and you can take the bus too. I have done a video about my bus trip up there, up to Kajori, and just keep going up and up and up. And it goes up and up and up. And eventually there are these volcanic mounds, old dead volcanic mounds that go to around, I don't know, 3,500 meters or over 11,000 feet, these huge humps. One of them eventually is Mount Ararat in the same chain, a little bit later in Turkey, although the Armenians would love it on their property because it's their sacred mountain. But yeah, so I'm here a million miles away from where I used to live in Alaska, 12 time zones away, 2 oceans away, oceans with blockages in each of the major canals in the world. The Suez Canal has some serious blockage issues right now, military ordnance type issues. And the Panama Canal has been suffering a drought and has backed up 100 boats, and they can't let them all in because there's not enough water. So it means that boats are going to have to go around big capes and such to get here. Strange. But all of this stuff is coming in. So what's happening, of course, is I moved from Alaska to here and didn't bring much with me, although I've accumulated things. I've been here officially over 5 years as of December 15th. But I am desperately in need of bringing my stuff here, particularly my very large library, which can be divided in 3 into books, music, and films. And I have a lot of stuff to bring. It's all boxed. It's all very well boxed, but I am waiting for that. So I've been trying to raise money for it, and the goal was $12,000. We're getting close, but we're still far enough away. Like, for instance, I need to go to the shipper soon and talk to them about I don't know what they're exactly going to charge me. 6,000 maybe at first. I don't know exactly the number, but basically, I have to kind of start doing the hardcore stuff here. And the other bit of it is getting the container down the coast to Seattle. So the shipping will go from Southeast Alaska up in the corner, all the way down 1,000 miles, 1,600 kilometers, down to the Seattle, and then somehow it's going to travel. And here's the thing: I really now have no idea how long it will take. I was just talking with a man who told me it took his stuff. He thought it would be 16 weeks, which is like already, oh my heart. But he said it took him 240 days to get his stuff here from Montana. Now, it's different because he started with an American shipper. They charged him a lot more money. And then it went by train to New York, and then went from New York across the ocean, then got stuck in Amsterdam for far too long. He finally had to threaten to call all his stuff missing because they just refused to send it from Amsterdam. I don't know who was dealing with it. But fortunately, my thing is going to be handled by Georgians. And so it should be basically one long trip, or maybe, I don't know if they break it up. I don't know. But anyway, we're getting close. I needed the $6,000 for the ferry. There is a ferry ticket involved here that I've already purchased. About, what was that? About $100, we'll say, back and forth up in Alaska. But so out of the 12,000, we need the $6,000 freighter fee. Got that. The $2,000 barge down the coast fee. Got that. The $2,000 once it gets to Georgia fee for paying for the company to bring it to my door and get it through customs. I got that. And I got a little more information about that. And then finally, the airplane tickets, which is what we're trying to finish off today. And like I said, I'll give you the number in just a moment. But it's crazy that, I already had to buy the tickets, but I'm not there yet. But that's because airplane tickets, if you wait too long, you get in real trouble. So here we are. And if you want to give, the way to give is there's a GoFundMe link below, or PayPal. And those are two ways to give. All right. So who's out there? Anyone want to say hello before we get too far? Think about it. I'm going to play one more short song. Well, that was Mississippi Fred McDowell. I have a great record where he talks and he goes like, "I'm Mississippi Fred McDowell. I'm from Rossville, Tennessee, but people call me Mississippi. You can call me whatever you want." It's a great album of him talking about the blues and playing with his slide guitar style. But let me remind you that I'm also sending off Georgian music. And I've still got another shipment to send off. If you haven't gotten yours yet, don't worry. Of rare Georgian music files. So if you give $50, I send you 50 files. I don't do it for less than that, though. $100, 100 files. $200, 200 files. I have packets of 4 of them. So let's play. This was actually someone who was a friend of mine. Her name is Miriam Eliashvili, and she just got married recently. I saw on Facebook. But when I first came here in 2016, I met her, and she was gracious enough to introduce me to some other Georgian musicians, and I caught her playing. And this is a short song of hers, a couple minutes long. And we'll do this, then we'll come back and give you the actual statistics of where we are. And meanwhile, if you're out there and want to say hello, feel free. And if you feel like coming on, I could use the moral support if you want to come on and hang out with me at the same time. We've been doing that because of Streamyard, and I only have 6 hours left of Streamyard stuff. So 2 today, 2 on Saturday, and then I'm gonna have to be really frugal with the last one. Then it renews on the 24th, but that's too late. I need to get the last 1,000 here before then. So, Miriam Liashvili, I'll be back in 2 minutes. Music there. So, well, let me switch cameras here and show you where we are on the big board, because we have had things come in, and I do have some interesting news for us. Let's go another light here. Not too much. That's good. So, where is my marker? There it goes. All right. So the good news is, when we quit last time, Anne-Marie double-dipped and came with a $50 pledge, or not pledge, but gift, bringing us to 1,000, and we only need 1,900, sorry, try it again, $1,095 left. Then I met this guy named Jeff, whom I will tell you more about, who's an American who lives here but has been watching me on my channel. We met up and he gave me a nice crisp $100 bill out of a machine. And so that means we went from 1,095 to 995. Then my very good friends, Karsten and Rebecca, who live in Germany, threw in another 100, which means now we only need $895. And I can say we've got the total of 12,000. That's pretty amazing. But like I said, the amount that I originally gave of 12,000 is not the maximum I need. It is the minimum I need. That is me scraping by. And the way it is I am seriously weighing every dime that comes in. But I am really grateful that we've gotten this far. And I am so happy. So yeah, this guy named Jeff called me, and he actually sent me an email first. He had seen, I think he started off with Georgian Crossroads and then went over to The Anadromist, and happened to like what he was watching there. And so he's watched a few of my videos. I don't know how many, but enough. And so the interesting thing about that is that he had sent his stuff. He's the guy I was telling you it took 240 days. He had sent his stuff and told me how exactly he did it, which saved me about $300 because I was scheduled for a local lawyer's appointment to discuss the taxes and stuff, which I'm sure would have been nice. But all the questions I had, Jeff answered. And so I called, I didn't call, I sent an email and canceled the appointment, which was for the next day. And I felt like, okay, well, this was providential, wasn't it? Because basically there were certain things like, what do I need to do about taxes beforehand? Nobody could answer this question for me. And then he told me he didn't do anything beforehand. He waited until it got here. And then the other question is, okay, so I have to know what's inside everything, but everything's inside in Alaska. And he said, you don't have to do it beforehand, so you can do it when you get there, and then it's going to take a while to get here. So one of my projects when I get back to Alaska and open my storage unit is I'll need a bunch of stuff written on the sides of the boxes. So I'll have to get some stickers and stuff. Unfortunately, I don't think I can do it with a printer here. I mean, I don't have a printer here. My printer in Alaska is certainly not going to work right now. It's been sitting too long, and I'm going to sell it. But yeah, that's the kind of thing, I'll just write everything because why not? There's only a couple hundred, 500, 600 boxes. So, but yeah, so that took another load off my mind to realize, ooh, I can wait for the tax stuff. And then he said his shipper, and I think my shipper will do this too, handled the customs stuff. And that is to say, not that they were the customs agents, but they brought it in and then they said, this is what we have. It's all personal possessions. He had a bunch of books, he had furniture and such as well. And they actually let him go, but there's no way of telling what will happen once it gets to the border, because it's all up to the individual customs guy. And the tax guy wrote me back and said, yeah, he says, as a lawyer in Georgia, I can't figure out how this works, which tells you a little bit of something. So if you are a praying person, do pray that it gets through the border without the hefty charges, because that would be nice. And it does happen. So it's just, turn the mind of the person who's looking to go like, yeah, this guy belongs in Georgia, and he's not going to meet me. He said that all this stuff came to his door from the company he was using, and he didn't, he didn't ever deal with the customs people. However, he had to fill out a form, but he didn't have to fill out the form until they got here. And another hint he gave me was when he had a box of books or something, he didn't write an itemized list of what's on there, which means I spent all this time making up this huge itemized kind of imitation itemized list of all my records and movies and stuff. He says he just put on a price, then put on a really low value for it. And I said, okay, I can do that. So basically, I am looking at, that's good news for me. That takes a huge chunk of stuff that was sitting on my mind off. Then there's the 240-day news, but I've just gotten to the point now with this. It's just like, it's coming here. It's not going to be easy. I've still got a lot of practical stuff to get through, lots of it. And, just in time. Oh, look, Joseph Alford is returned. And let's see what Joseph Alford is coming back with $30 US. We'll put that up in a moment. Thank you, Joseph. That brings us to, we now only need 865 American dollars to get to $12,000. Are you out there? Are you getting the vibe here? And I'd like to do this before. I would love to do it by the time Saturday evening is over. But I'd love to do it before the Streamyard stuff where I can invite people on happens. Like I said, if you'd like to come on, if you're one of my the people who have come on before, or if you just like, gee, Bern, I'd like to hang out with you for a while, I'd love that, because it makes this go a little easier if you do. So if you want to just send me a note. Who's out there? Joseph's out there. Thank you. Other people are. Say hello. Somebody, tell me where you're from. Let me know I'm not talking into the wind. Although, I do know other people will watch this later. But I do have a small little teeny cohort right now, and that's nice. So the other thing is, oh, just when everything, okay, I'm collecting money. Fortunately, I'm collecting money because this happened last February. And I thought they did this every 2 years or so. But now it turns out it's every year. They've cut off my Social Security money. Why? Because they sent a physical envelope to my address here, and then they don't hear a response. And then they say, well, maybe he's dead. I'm not. So since I went through this last year, this year it was just like, okay, I know what I have to do. I have to get in touch with them. I sent them an email, actually to the office. There's a Social Security office in Athens, of all places, and it's part of the U.S. Embassy there. But so I had to go. They sent me a form in email. I had to make a photocopy, then sign it, then put it in a physical envelope and send it to them. That's the U.S. government. That's our wonderful bureaucracy. It's just crazy stuff. And but here's the thing: they told me now it's annual, so that means I can start looking for it in December. If I don't see it, then I will get in touch with them in January and say, hey, I haven't seen the envelope. Can you send me the email of the form and I will do what I did this year, so that I send it before it gets cut off? Because there's like a 3-week turnaround or more. So I won't get that money back in I will get the money I was supposed to get at the beginning of February, but last year it was tougher because I didn't have all this extra money. But that's the problem, you see. I've got this extra money and now I need to go use it. So it would be good to get some more here before I go to the trucking company, so that everything works. And then I have to get in touch with the two main things to do now is get in touch with the trucking company here, the shipping company, and the one in Alaska, and hope that I guessed right about the $2,000 coming down the barge. If I didn't, I will be back. Some nice tea that I bought. There's a couple of women. They look like sisters who have a little tea and coffee shop here, and their English is as minimal as my Georgian, but they're really nice, and so I like to patronize them in the good sense of the word. Why is patronize good sometimes and bad other times, which is a strange thing? Well, let's do the thing. We're going to put up Joseph's amount and make that an official. So Joseph Alford, another 30. Joseph, did you get all of the Georgian music files I've sent to you? I think you've gotten the full load or something like it. I know it's been quite a bit. So it's now $865 left. That's all. And that means, I meant to do this. So let's see, that was $11,005 we started with, and then plus 30, so that's 35. Is that right? I don't know. I have to. No, I got an extra 100. So that was that. Yeah, something like that. I think that's where we are on the grand total. So we now have $11,135. I'll have to check my math on that because I didn't do well on math. Anyway, okay, so let's play another song, shall we? And like I said, who's out there? Joseph. Great to see you. You're almost at your goal. Wishing you all the best. Thank you. And Joseph, did you get did you download a bunch of Georgian music files? You deserved it. You've been a real contributor, a real blessing. So okay. So what else are we doing here? Oh, I've got some weird stuff. I've got some Georgian stuff. Speaking of weird stuff, actually, let me play this strange thing. This is a minute long. This is a Russian puppeteer, I think, but this is how I feel sometimes in this process of wrestling with all this stuff and going back. Sometimes I don't get much sleep thinking about it, waking up, going like, wake up at 4 in the morning and then I can't get back to bed thinking of everything I have to do. Watch this. Very bizarre Russian puppetry there. I don't even have a category for that. I know lots of categories of puppetry: rod puppetry, hand puppetry, shadow puppetry, marionettes, etc. But I have no category for that. That's just like weird. But that's the great, that's why I'm into puppets, is because people can come up with stuff that nobody's got a category yet. Try doing that in music these days. It just doesn't work. You know, it's just everybody knows, yeah, we've heard that. You know, that fits over there. You go play with those people. Okay. Okay, talked about that. PayPal link below, GoFundMe link below. Turns out GoFundMe actually gives me a better deal than PayPal. That's the way it goes. And like I said, once I get to the final goal, then I have to consider how much money. I haven't done this yet. Do a little bit of math to figure out how much PayPal took out, and because the 12,000 really is 12,000. It's not, 10,500 or whatever. No, it's more than that, but it's certainly in the 11,000 category. But I don't know for sure. So here's a weird Georgian song, and this is kind of funny. It shows these guys singing a song. It's kind of a Georgian rock song, but they're singing in the forest. It's a group called Zarzma, and they're singing in the forest. And I'm just going to let it play and let it speak for itself. Who else is out there? Say hello if you want to. Meanwhile, here is Zarzma from Georgia doing some more contemporary Georgian sounding music.
Odisets, Portusatas nair pershi. Kashi kwedgas, nalmi jede bulikarit, kholochven muspende petkas, garet modudune karis, archeni knebodi soli, artsne merkne oda kamari. Sheshas, Vandrev Cheni Kochis Karatan. Zamtri Svolodin Sheshas, Vandrev Cheni Kochis Karatan.
That actually kind of reflects the fact that Russia is on the border of Georgia, and that, for instance, all during this whole Ukrainian crisis thing, Russia's troops are about, about 70, 80 kilometers away from me here, and they're on this side of the mountains in the area called South Ossetia. So, this reflects guys traveling around and soldiers kind of patrolling the borders, and they kind of have to, because the Russians do all sorts of crazy things. Like there's been several instances, I mean, more than several, of people in this area where there was a war in 2008. And I'm talking about instances in the last few years where someone has a house that is on one side, the Georgian side of the border, and they wake up and there's razor wire all on the other side of their house, and it happened at night, where the Russians just moved everything over. So I'm not going to go too much into that stuff, but that's a bit of what that video reflected, that sense of people, Georgian soldiers doing patrols up in the mountains and such like that. Okay, anyone got any questions? Anyone want to talk about anything, or do you want to mention anything? If you want to come on, like I said, just say, Bern, I'd like to come on. I will give you I'll put up the email for you to use, and we'll go from there. And like I said, we now only need to finish this whole thing up, to get to the total, we need $865. So close. And boy, I would love to be able to say, okay, that's enough, and just go back to bed. I mean, literally, I mentioned before, sometimes this does keep me up at night, thinking about it. But now one thing is for certain. I have my tickets. I am going for certain to Alaska. I'm leaving here on March 6th. I am taking off from Tbilisi airport, and then I'm going to Paris. And so I have a round trip ticket from here to Paris. And I'm coming back here on the 4th, but actually I'm going to get stuck in Athens, Greece, for about 18 hours on the way back. So I won't actually get back here until April 6th. Do you want a video from me for April Fools? I have concepts. But then when I'm in Paris, I'll probably spend one day there and then go from there on British Airways, which is not my preferred airway, but right now it's all about saving money. Everything I'm doing with my travel, I'm just, what's the lowest? I can keep it. Like I said, this is not. I'm not going out here going like, yes, I'm going to take my $12,000 and go to Paris. So that'd be kind of nice. But no, I'm taking the $12,000 and going round trip to Alaska, and that's going to cost me literally all the tickets involved with going to Alaska and getting to Haines, ferry and Alaskan Airlines and everything else is going to cost. It's about $2,000 exactly. So I figured that almost too well. I'd like a little wiggle room, but I don't really have it. So but in Paris, then I'm taking off and going from Paris, stop in London on British Airways, then go straight to Seattle one way, and then I'm going from there on Alaskan Airlines. I'm getting out and visiting a cousin in Seattle one night on the way there, and another night on the way back. But then I'm going up to Alaska. I arrive at 11:59. I guess that's, you might as well say midnight the next day. But on the what day is that? The 8th. And on the 9th at 7 o'clock in the morning, I have to be on the ferry, which means really I have to be there by about, I don't know, 6 o'clock in the morning. And fortunately, all the hotels in Alaska will use a shuttle to get you to the ferry. And the ferry is not, fortunately, I can get out and actually physically walk from the airport to the hotel in under 10 minutes or so. But the ferry is quite a ways away. That's an hour walk or more, hour and a half, and especially at night. So which is what 6 in the morning would be up there, and so they'll drive me out there. The only problem is, like, I'm spoiled by all the cost of things here. It's the cheapest place I could find that wasn't an absolute dump. There was one place a bit cheaper, but basically by the time I was done with all the taxes and fees, was pretty close to $200 a night, which is like, oh, come on, couldn't we do it for $50 a night? It's Alaska. But people in Alaska charge more. When I looked into the Airbnb totals, they were all like over $200 in Haines. And I'm sitting there going, what are you people doing? Is it that you're only expecting a couple people and you want to make your money for the year? So, but in the morning on the 9th of March, I am taking the ferry. It's a 4.5 hour trip up to Haines, Alaska on the ferry. But at that point, it's like suddenly the sun will, I don't know if the sun will come out. It could be really overcast or it could be snowing. Hope not, but you never know. Yeah, that's another thing I've been thinking about is like, oh, what if it's super snowy? What about my, and I'm thinking about, what about trying to sell my stuff at the yard sale? And, there's just so much practical stuff. I have a checklist with about 50 things on it to do before I leave here. But then I'm going to spend 8 days there. I'll visit my friends who go to the Presbyterian church there, and probably get invited out to visit a few people. I'm not going there to do anything that's like vacation stuff. So I won't be going up the road unless somebody drives me, but I will probably be really busy just trying to organize everything. And now putting labels on things is just going to be really, it's going to be 8 days. And I'm going to arrive on Saturday. On Sunday, the next Sunday, I'm leaving. And then in one day, I leave early in the morning, probably about 9 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, and arrive in Juneau at 1:45 in the afternoon. Then go from there, and around 5 o'clock leave on Alaskan Airlines to go down to Seattle. Then I'll get off there and spend another day. I just did not want to rush through there. That was the reason I bought 2 separate round trip tickets. I could have bought it all through like Expedia or someplace like that, and I did use them for the British Airways part, but I went straight through Alaska Airline because I have a mileage card and such, and British Airways is also on that. But what I did was I purposely then I left about 10 days in Europe on the way back. So when I arrive in, what I was thinking of is originally is coming back to Paris and then using that as my hub. But then I said, well, why not go to London and visit my friends, the Quay brothers, and maybe I don't know, Tayo, or if you're listening, are you in the area? If you are, I'd like to say hello. If there's anyone else here in the London area, get in touch now. Send me an email if you want to, because I will be in London. I will also be then going to Brussels. Not that I don't know if anybody here who's in Brussels, but I will. The weirdest thing is, so a round trip ticket to Paris from Seattle, what was that? I don't know, $800 or $900. But if I wanted the ticket to go from Paris, London, it stops in London, goes to Seattle, then comes back and stops me off in Seattle, they tack on another almost $1,500 to do that. So I just said, okay, I know what I'll do. I'll just get the round trip and get off in London and not get on the final leg of the plane. That's like advanced level travel there for you. And yes, you can do that. It's not a problem. So yeah, here we are. We now only need 865 American dollars to get to the $12,000 goal. And if you haven't helped, you can certainly throw in a few dollars. I had good friends, Karsten and Rebecca, Karsten's been a very good friend since around, what was it? Was it 2000? I know it was 2005. But I'm trying to think if I actually saw him in 2000, met him first in 2000. I think I did. He was really young then, but 2005, he was a bit older. And then he came up and spent a summer in Alaska. He's visited me, I think, twice there. And he went with me on my puppet trip around North America and Canada and America. So that was really nice to hear from them. They have 3 wonderful young girls and live in Lüneburg in Germany. And I also heard Joseph Alford has given another $30, and you too can give more, but I'm not going to push that. And then Jeff, this guy who lives here, who was also kind of a follower of this channel and Georgian Crossroads, and some of my stuff helped him in both ways. He met me and just gave me a nice crisp $100 bill, which I put in the collection for that stuff. So there we are. Any questions? Anybody want to talk? Who else is out there? Give me a name. Give me a place. I'm just talking and talking, and I'd like to talk about something. I could talk about something. I was thinking about, well, let's get a whole series of things to talk about. But the truth of the matter is, the most important thing for me to talk about is getting more stuff collected here. And so we'll do that, just because that is the name of this game. Okay. Hello, say hello, somebody. Okay, let's see if anybody's given anything over here. Nope, we're still good there. You know what happened the other day is I did this at the very end when everyone was gone. I said, this is the last song. Then I realized there was all this stuff happening over on GoFundMe that I didn't see, Paul Vanderklay. And I finally figured out the real name of Grim Grizz, but I'm treasuring it. I'm not going to tell anybody. That's up to him. So, hey, Timothy, thank you. Greetings from the Midwest. Good to hear from you there. And thank you for past contributions. I'm glad to see you there. Like I said, questions, thoughts, feel free. I'll play another song now while we're waiting. And let me see what kind of song I have some very strange songs here, but Um, okay. This is a really great piece. This is one of the last of the really great Mississippi blues musicians was this guy named R.L. Burnside, and he was kind of, I think, many of the great blues musicians were like Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Little Milton, uh, Sonny Boy Williamson, 1 and 2. There were two different guys who called themselves Sonny Boy Williamson. Um, and then, we went on in, it was B.B. King and such. And then it was, there was Hound Dog Taylor, J.B. Hutto. And then what was interesting was that it looked like we were coming to the end of all the great original blues musicians. And there's a world of difference between those original, particularly the ones coming out of Mississippi, but and then people like John Lee Hooker, who also I think came out of Mississippi, but ended up in Detroit, not Chicago. But then they found out a couple of other people in the 1980s, and in the I think it was in the 70s they found them in the backwoods of Mississippi. These guys playing these little barbecue parties, and one of them was R.L. Burnside, who lived for I think another 10 years into the 90s. John Spencer, who had this kind of crazy bluesy rock band called the John Spencer Blues Explosion, and he lived right across the hall from me in New York City. He had he did an album with him, and basically that brought R.L. Burnside into more public consciousness. Certainly, by that time, blues was no longer cool, but thanks to John Spencer. So let's play a nice little 4-minute piece here called by R.L. Burnside called "See My Jumper." I didn't quite see the title here, and I can't really show it, but my jumper came on. My jumper, not okay. R.L. Burnside. Here we go.
See my jumper hanging on the line. See my jumper, Lord, hanging out on the line. See my jumper, Lord, hanging out on the line. Something on my mind. If it hadn't have been for you, when I've to my head.
Earl Burnside, see my jumper hanging on the line. And what a fascinating primitive style. I really love primitive blues. I love acoustic blues. And there is a point at which what I would call the blues essentially stopped. He was one of the last people. There was one other guy whose name slips my mind right now. Pine Top Perkins? No. Yeah, since then you have people playing blues chords and singing blue notes, which is very different. There are a few singers after that who seem to have some idea about it, but Muddy Waters once said, the thing about the blues is you kind of have to suffer. And what Muddy Waters was also saying is you kind of have to suffer like you're black. You're not just going to be a white boy going to college and have the blues. You might be able to play it really well. So people will say, well, yeah, Eric Clapton was one of the best blues players. But I think Eric Clapton would understand, yeah, he's nothing at all like Robert Johnson, nothing at all like B.B. King, two people who influenced him quite a bit. So, yeah, primitive blues, I love it. And I'm just trying to think if I've ever actually been face to face with someone I would consider a primitive blues player playing somewhere. There's been a few street musicians, but still not really. Sad. But at some point, these people walk the earth. And the thing is, there aren't that many actual good movies of them, because in the 1950s, when they were starting to get some notoriety, who wanted to take who wanted to make movies about them? Nobody. By the time they did start making movies in the middle of the 60s, when people like the Rolling Stones had rediscovered people like Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf and others, Slim Harpo and such, after a while, what we got Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf and all the rest of them singing for white folkies or British rock musicians in 1966 or something. So what we don't have of hardly any at all is blues musicians performing live in their element in any really good filmic material. Because there is one great recording of B.B. King early in the 1960s. It's just a recording. There's no film of it, but you hear that the black audience is treating him totally different than the white audiences did. And they really understand, when he sings something like, I worked 5 long years for my baby, but she broke my heart, that kind of stuff. People who are like white college kids here, that's like, yeah, that's tough. You worked 5 hard years for your baby and then she broke your heart. Whereas the black people, you get the feeling they're talking about World War II. It's just like, yeah, I did all this and then you put me right back on the plantation. So anyway, great stuff, the blues. And who else is out there? Joseph. Okay. Hi, Bern. I'd like to come on. Would you? Great. So I'm going to put up the, it's good to, it'd be nice to see who you actually are. Here is the actual, you might have this already. Go ahead and go to Reckoning Motions. And once I see you send me an email, I will, I'm copying right now the invitation for you. I will turn around and send it right back to you. It takes around 3 minutes for this to go back and forth. And yeah, I'd like to talk with you. It's nice. I really like. I think some of the best part of all this thing is, I mean, begging for money is a pain, no matter how you do it. Um, I mean, it's a little more sophisticated than sitting on the street with your hand out, but in many ways, it's not. you know, it's just that we look at it differently, and I come across a little more respectable. But nevertheless, we have when I meet people and I have communication back and forth, that really makes me feel like, okay, here's what we're really doing. This is what we're doing. And of course, the only thing better than meeting you online or answering questions is if I meet you in the flesh. And of course, that takes some work. So, Joseph, if you've got that written down, I am going to hide it again just so it's not up all the time. It's so big. But reckoningmotions at yahoo.com. And I'll wait to see the little red dot that shows up, and then I'll send that back to you. And if anyone else would like to come on a bit later, let me know. But I don't know who Joseph is, so I want to talk to him a bit and find out. So here we go. So I got your email here, and now I'm sending you the link, and it's off on some satellite right now, coming back to you. That is so bizarre. What's really weird is not only is it going up into a satellite and going to you, I'm guessing you're in the USA, but it's actually does that if I call someone next door to me. So we can no longer. I did just meet someone in my building. There's a French woman with her baby, and her husband works at the local French school, which is on the other side of the park from me. So I finally have someone in my building I can talk to. That's kind of cool. All right, so here's what we need. We need $865 to get to $12,000. Are you listening to me? Do you hear what I'm saying? We're close. And every dollar you give gets us closer. And if you give $100, that gets us closer. But also, if you give $50, $100, $200, whatever, I send you, shall we say, lashings of Georgian music files for free. Well, it's not for free. Okay, so here is Joseph, and we'll find out who Joseph is. Let's do that. And you, meanwhile, think about where you are in this process. Okay, hey Joseph.
Hi, Ben. Nice to meet you.
So, where are you from?
I'm actually from the UK.
Okay, what part?
London.
Oh, so maybe I will see you when I pass through.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I'm going to spend, I think, 3 days there. I'll be visiting my friends one day, but I was thinking of walking over and checking out the Unheard situation and things like that. But yeah.
Where are you? Where are you going in London? Where are you?
They're over by somewhere near King's Cross or Islington, or there's a little area in there. I've forgotten the exact name of it, but it's past Pancras, a little bit further out, not towards the center, but a little bit further out. Yeah. But I'm going to probably stay somewhere. If you know somewhere I can stay, let me know. I'm going to stay. I haven't bought my hotel thing yet there, so I'm thinking about that. But like I said, if anybody wants to get together and find a way for me to stay for a couple of days, that would be nice. But doesn't matter either. It's not gonna. Fortunately, London is not nearly as expensive as Alaska. I can find a place like an Airbnb for like $65 a night there, whereas it's $200 a night in Juneau, Alaska.
Really? Gosh, yeah. That surprises me.
So tell me about yourself. What do you do?
Well, I started a new job recently that I'm in training for. Going to be in training for a long time, like 16 weeks. Okay. But it's just I'm working in like a call center. Okay. But I say working in a call center, not really. I'm working from home, but I'm doing that kind of job. for
Is
a
it
bank.
okay? So is it troubleshooting kind of stuff?
It's a lot of just like general inquiries, a little bit of tech support sort of
Right,
stuff.
right.
But
Well,
yeah, it's very
I guess we can do that from home now, which makes it a lot better
yeah.
because the whole thing of doing it, I remember I worked at a very strange, I think it was only a month in New York City. I worked at it wasn't what we quite call a call center today, but it was similar in that we would get messages sent to us and then we would write messages
Oh yeah.
and then leave messages on people's phones for them. This was in the 1980s, so
Oh right.
technologically things were primitive. But the problem with that job is it was I had to go in to this place. And the other people I worked with,
Mm.
I just immediately felt like, oh my goodness, this is really depressing. And I was right next to the Port Authority bus terminal in New York City, which is a bit like being in hell.
Right. Okay.
To get there, you
Okay.
walk past the prostitutes and the drug dealers, and the at that time there was X-rated movie theaters, and
Mm.
you and then you go into the near the bus terminal where you see like a 13-year-old girl, doing a trick for some 60-year-old man, and if you look around, you'll find her pimp. So a very dark area. So I literally lasted less. I mean, as soon as I realized what this job is, I said, I got to get myself out of here. But I think working at home would have made it a very different kind of, but that was a different kind of a thing. But still.
Yeah. It's they seem very keen to from the training that I've had to kind of like buck that trend of it being this kind
Right.
of like miserable job. And they've done a lot to like they're very conscious of the fact that it's like a remote job, so they've done a lot to try and like keep people who work the job in contact with each other,
Right.
which is pretty good. Um, but yeah, so yeah, great to see that you're like nearly at your goal. Like
Yeah, it is. Trust me, the closer I
it
get,
feels good,
it-
right?
yeah, I'm doing good. But at the same time, it's just like there's a lot of frustration doing this. And what I've discovered is
Yeah.
doing this kind of thing where you ask people to support you.
Mm.
And I used to do this for public radio in Alaska, but of course the difference there is I just talked.
Yeah,
No one
sure.
had to see
Yeah.
me. And
Yeah.
but even then it was like, we had these goals we had to meet, and we knew that we had to meet them. And it was
Mm.
always great when you went over them and always terrible when you didn't. And
Yeah.
so there was at least one year I remember we missed the goal by a substantial amount, but I think that's because the manager put it too high. And
Mm.
but doing this is like like I said, I have had one time doing this where I had really an existential crisis in my own life while doing it because I was doing it.
Mm.
And I was trying. This was when I was in Alaska, and I was trying to raise just $5,000. But at that time, I was not the only social media I had at that time was Facebook,
Right. Yeah.
and I probably had I don't know 300-400 people following me on Facebook. And then I had the local people in the Alaskan community. But I'd made some really tactical errors. And one was, if I do this in Alaska, it's got to be in the summer. And that's the only time you can really do it, because you've got all these people who work there in the summer. And they tend to be much more enthusiastic about giving we would do our radio fundraiser in the summer for the same reason, than the locals who tend to hunker down and it's just like, okay, well, I can afford a little. So yeah, I eventually did get the $5,000, but it took something like 3 months. And in the middle of it, I was just like, what am I doing? And why am I such a failure that I have to do this? It's just like, and you start going over your stuff. And then for me, it's just like, okay, so I wrote this novel, and it's like, I never got it published. And you start saying to yourself, what have I done with my life? And I'm getting older, and I'm going to die. And, then what happens? What if I die tonight and I've got all this stuff sitting around in my, this stuff was piling up inside of me.
Yeah.
But, I dealt with it. And I said to myself, okay, well, if I die and I have a bunch of stuff at home, I'm dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
What am I going to
Do
do?
about
We're
it. Yeah,
kind
yeah. What are you gonna do?
of- so, but I think we all want our lives to mean something. See,
Yeah.
I've never had any children, so I say to myself, what am I even doing with myself? And that was one of the reasons I started the YouTube channels. Is when I first got here in 2018 actually. Well, I visited before then, but that's when I actually was here when I discovered Paul Vanderklay. And this
Mm.
was at the end of, I think maybe I discovered him a little bit before, but I started watching him more at the end of 2017, beginning of 2018, when I was just visiting here for 3 months. And then when I got back, I realized I thought I had a job here, and I did, but they were paying me for a month what I would make in a really long day of tourism in Alaska in one day.
Yeah.
So that was like, I immediately said, okay, I got to do something. Maybe there's another way I can make a little money. And I thought about this. And then I applied. Fortunately, I was old enough to apply for my Social Security retirement money. So I did that, although it took like ages to finally get to me. But yeah. But doing that was a way of basically saying, I've got all this stuff that I've been working on my head, and here's the scary thing for me. I said, yeah, I'd rather my trajectory be like someone like Dostoevsky's, who started off and he thought he was going somewhere and then he didn't. And then near the end of his life, it went uphill. And then I suddenly, like now I look back and I'm like, oh, Dostoevsky died in his 50s. I'm 68. It's like Tarkovsky died in his 50s. I'm 68. G.K. Chesterton died at 62. C.S. Lewis died at, and I think of all these people and I start going, oh man.
I've outlived them all.
It doesn't get to me the way it used to. So now I just go, okay, I put out little stuff out there. Maybe some of this is helpful. And that makes me feel better. So
Yeah.
how did you find the channel? Was it through the Paul Vanderklay tube?
Yeah, it was. So I started watching Paul. Oh, I think also around 2017, 2018, maybe even
Did you
earlier.
go through Jordan Peterson?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
There's this pathway.
Yeah, it really is. It really is like a, yeah. It's so, yeah, I discovered Jordan Peterson through, Carl Benjamin.
You probably saw the same interview with him that I did.
Yeah, I imagine so. Yeah.
That's what cued me on to Peterson too.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I get into. So I grew up pretty. I think pretty sheltered. I guess that you could probably tell that you grew up sheltered if you don't really know that you grew up sheltered. Like, and so then it's like when I go off to uni, I just get like the full force of like the
Where did you grow up?
In London.
Okay.
Yeah, I went off to
Just off in a corner somewhere.
yeah, pretty much. Yes, but I grew up in South London, in one of the sort of poorer parts.
Below Brixton?
No, not below Brixton. Bit
above it, near Suffolk.
Near Brixton, sort of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I once stayed in Brixton in 1978. I was coming through, and someone handed me a little hand Xerox thing at the train station. I was with a friend, and it said, here's, take the tube and go here for a hostel. And we went to this weird little place in Brixton that was just, it was just, it was a small little, the usual, like, I don't know what the exact name for the little thing, the little buildings that have like different layers. This one had an outside loop. And yeah. And but the weirdest thing about this place is there was a guy there who was kind of in charge of the place, and he was like an older guy who was like, all right, hey Dad. I we noticed that there were mirrors everywhere. And I mean everywhere, on the ceiling, behind the toilet, in the
Oh, what?
showers, like inside the bedroom we were in. They were on the ceilings and on the walls. And
Oh dear.
if you stood in a certain way, you could look up there was 2 flights of stairs. You could look up it. And at one point, I asked the guy, "So where did you get all the mirrors?" And he goes like, "Oh, we got a lot of them." And that's all he said. And I didn't know if he meant we got like a lot, like a lot.
Yeah,
of
like this is
merchandise.
nothing. I've got like way more mirrors.
Yeah, or we have a
Yeah.
whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
And my friend and I were starting to get these very strange vibes. There were a couple of other
Mm.
people staying there, so we thought, okay, we're not, but it was in Brixton, so I spent a few days there
Yeah.
during the late 70s, which was an interesting period.
Mm. Yeah, makes me think of watching your videos of like the How We Got Here series and like the sort of the underground sort of seedy culture of just like big urban centers. It's like it was like that in London
Right.
as well. Like,
Oh,
oh,
we got to stop.
oh, do we?
We just had Roderick. I just noticed what you did for us there, and I'd like to thank you so much. If you feel like coming on, feel free, and I'll pass you the thing. I got to stop and do this. You'll see why in a second here. This is
Oh, okay.
Beyond the Call of Duty. Roderick, let me ask you a question. Do you want a couple hundred Georgian music files? If you do, just say, yes, I do, and I will make sure I send them to you. Okay, so Roderick decided things were boring.
Oh, okay.
And
Oh dear. Oh no.
I'm going to shift down to one person here, then shift over to this camera and go to this camera. And so we'll just put Roderick down here for 1,000 American dollars. So that kind of breaks everything. It gets us past it's really nice. Puts us over 12,000, and I'm stopping counting now. So thank you so much, Roderick. You have made, I am going to do this a bit more to try to get some of the rest of what I need, because PayPal takes a certain amount out. And so I will continue doing this. And also there are other expenses along the way that are unforeseen for sure. As my friend I talked to recently, Jeff, said, yeah, make sure you keep going, because his ended up costing 14,000. So thank you so much, Roderick. It's really wonderful of you to do that for us. And that's serious support. I really appreciate it. No homework for you. I appreciate that. Where are you from, Roderick? Just let me know that. Jeepers. I'm touched. I really am. Pretty amazing. You see, I can't even find a way to get back to normal here. I'm sitting there going like, oh no. So yeah, but I am touched. I really am. And thank you. Okay, well, I'm just going to play music from here on out. No,
Yeah. Well, Roderick really showed
no,
me
I'm
up,
not.
didn't he? A measly $30.
Hey, you've thrown in some other money though. So
yeah, no, I'm kidding. No,
I think you were triple dipping at that point at least. So if I go back, I know you've done it. I think you've done more than 250s. So, oh wait, someone's calling. Who is calling me? Oh, it's a call from it's a call from my cell phone company, or is it? Yeah. Oh, it's from France. Oh, it's my friend Paulette. Paulette? Or it's somebody. Anyway, it was a call from France.
Oh, well.
So I think it was my friend Paulette, but no, it wasn't, because it didn't have a name attached to it. It was somebody. It was nice, but I'm not taking calls while I'm doing this. So this is what else? Nashville. Okay, cool. Been on, okay, you've been on PBK channel a few times. Marriage crisis conversations. Yeah, there is one, isn't there? And the more I think about it, the more I think that, what happened was we now have, there was a lot of stuff happened after World War II. A lot of the soldiers came back after World War II, and their sexual ethics had, shall we say, slipped quite a bit. A similar thing happened after World War One, particularly in the UK, where there was just, but in America, what happened is because we came out so strong out of the war, that's when you started getting all these girls magazines, girly magazines. Playboy came out of this and stuff. A lot of it came from, if you've ever seen those World War II barracks photos, and they have all these pinups on the walls. And so they started to feed that market, and then that grew. So Playboy was one of the first major philosophical challenges to the older ideas of faithfulness and fidelity. The other one was the Kinsey report. And Kinsey, we now know, was totally screwing with his statistics. He had it actually that 1 in 10 people was homosexual, which is like, come on, that's a little steep. That means every 10th person is gay. No, I don't think so. Although that's pretty much what we're seeing happening in weird ways. So, okay.
It's a bit too early.
Okay. Oh, another one just showed up. Richard. Okay, Richard downloaded my music. That's a different story, but I'm glad he finally did because he kept missing it. Let me check out what's going over on GoFundMe. It doesn't let me know when something has happened. Nothing is happening there, but it's nice to know something could happen. So, what have you spent your time doing? How old are you? Around 30? You look
27.
27? 37. What was that?
27.
27. I knew you were somewhere in the back half of 20 at least. So
yeah.
So what have you been doing? What have you been trying to get to? What have you been in your life? What's out there as a goal or something you want to? Is there anything you want to do with yourself? I don't think working at a call center is the final destination.
No.
So.
No, but that's been kind of the journey in and of itself, finding a place. I know what I've been drawn to. I think that's it's kind of what's made me sort of, because I'm a like notorious horrible lurker. I've been like watching like Paul van der Clay and many of the other channels that are sort of like connected to him, like Karen Wong with the Meaning Code, and I've just not interacted because I feel so intimidated by all that, by just the really just incredibly intelligent people that come on, and just like really soulful and thoughtful people, and but yeah, the dream I've had since I was like a kid was to be like a writer, because like reading it was the Lord of the Rings that really sort of changed me. I was a changed boy. I was a young boy when I read it, and yeah, it was just like, yeah, it was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. But then I think I got really sort of disillusioned with the arts and with the culture at large. I think that, gosh, no one. I don't think anyone's going to want to read like a Lord of the Rings style book anymore.
There have been quite a few of those kinds of things, which is why I shifted because that was, a lot of that kind of stuff really got to me too. I was particularly a fan of George MacDonald, who's C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien's influence. But I did write one piece that was totally a high fantasy piece. It was called
Mm.
Brindar and the Blue Rose. I mean, it just sounds like something.
That's that
Um,
sounds great.
yeah, and it was. It was about a guy who is sent out to go pick a rose to bring back to the king, and he goes through all this hell to get it, and
Mm.
in the end, it fails. And
Mm.
he shows up and he says, I tried, but I lost the rose and stuff. And the king looks in his hand. This is a real George MacDonald move. He looks in his hand and he goes like, "What's that?" And he looks at the thorn stuck in there. He goes like,
Oh,
"That is the blue rose."
oh,
So, one of these kind of eucatastrophe moments.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, but then I realized, oh no, I see a very different world, and so I do write, and I have some stories in my head that I don't know if I'll get them out. If I do, I sent off. I don't know, CW, you out there? I sent off CW a copy of my novel, and I haven't heard back
yeah,
from him yet. I'm hoping he didn't get bored by it or too depressed by it, more likely, because it's just part of it is 16 years in New York City will do massive things to your sense of reality. I
Oh, I
was just
bet.
watching some movie. I was a documentary, a pseudo documentary that came out in the late 80s in New York. And I just got a copy yesterday, and I looked at that and I go, yeah, I know 5 of the people interviewed here. And I watched this thing and I just said, I sometimes I can't believe I survived New York City at that period, late 80s, early 90s. But yeah, so for me, it was looking at this and saying, I really like fantasy. And then I shifted my view slightly so that the novel that I did finish, I have 2 of them. One is The 5 Masters of Reality. If you go through it, it totally acts like fantasy and totally isn't at the same time. And so what I did is I took the principles, but then put them into something like, but not exactly real life. But it's not magical realism either. It's just
Right.
really extreme. So this guy goes around and meets these 5 crazy characters. And so essentially, in doing so, they get stranger and stranger as he goes. But what I have this thing in my mind is it's got to be something that could happen.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
But I guess in New York City, I'd met such extreme people that I just said, let me push these walls out a little further and see what happens.
yeah,
So it was just finding a way to get that idea, because right now, unfortunately, and this has to do a lot with the YA bubble, which sounds like from your age, you caught that exactly. The late 90s, early aughts, Harry Potter, yes?
Oh, I wasn't so much into Harry Potter. It's yeah, I don't really know why. There was
I do.
something. Oh, okay.
No, yeah, I understand though, but yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Always whenever I saw, I think the kinds of people reading this is such a like young like boy thing. It was like I always saw girls reading it, and I was like, oh no, this is
Right.
this is a girls thing. No, I don't read this. I don't read this.
Well, I think a lot of the YA fantasy stuff was slotted more towards girls.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Hunger Games, well, Twilight, obviously, but a lot of those different series, Divergent, and all that stuff was slotted
Yeah.
towards girls. Girls as the lead character. Harry Potter was kind of wasn't quite that, but at the same time, it had that sort of feel.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely think Harry Potter is better than those ones that came after. And yeah, I was always surprised how much Harry Potter took off in America.
Yeah.
And like what is that? I still can't sort of figure out what it is about.
Someone once said, some critic once said, and I think I agree with them, that look at yourself as a late 90s, early aughts kid, and you got the internet, you got video games, eventually you get smartphones and such, or cell phones, then smartphones. You've got all these chat lines, but you're doing things your parents just don't understand.
Yeah.
They don't get, not every parent, but a lot of parents just don't. they're always behind on how do you get this to work? I'm having trouble with this, and what is that
Mm.
weird place you're on, MySpace? And they would look at that as being kind of strange to them, whereas for the kids this was more natural. And so what the thought was that Harry Potter, with all his powers and stuff, represents and I don't think J.K. Rowling's actually meant this to happen, but this is
Yeah.
the way it connected. It represented this kid who was technologically different than his parents. And one of the things that's often said about technology, a new technology often seems like magic to people.
Mm.
And I think that many people started to see themselves, and in fact, this seems to be what happened, was that more and more this fantasy mindset and science fiction and the whole geek thing. You probably saw my 21st century cargo cults video.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that whole mentality comes in. One of the things that's interesting is I'm actually going to put a version of that on my new Anadrome channel. I've been a bit behind on it because of this. But one of the things I'm doing is updating it a bit. And one of the things I start realizing as I'm updating it is like, things have changed a bit since from the pandemic on. For instance, the dominance of Marvel seems to have loosened its grip. Same with comic book movies in general, Pixar movies and such. They've loosened their grip on the imagination. Interesting that something like Barbie didn't, but I think that you watch this. It's like I think the whole thing with Taylor Swift now is a 2020s thing. She was big in the teens, but something else has happened, and it doesn't strike me as a coincidence that it happened the same year as the Barbie movie. And it's not just a feminist thing; it's something else. I think it has to do with all these people living in technological isolation, and they feel this sense of community when even going to the movie and dancing around in the aisles and such, that they're not alone. And Taylor Swift makes them feel that way. There's a lot of problems with that, but nevertheless, I think that's that. But as far as to get back to what you were saying about fantasy, don't stop loving fantasy. But here's what I would do.
Don't worry.
Yeah. But here's what I would do to solidify your understanding of it is really get into fairy tales, really get into legends, really get into the stories and fables and myths of different countries. That's what I've been doing lately. So for instance, these things go when I do puppet stuff. Like I'm immediately thinking like, oh, I'm in Georgia. What are their myths like? If I want to communicate to the Georgians, what kind of things do they have in their past? And to get a grounding in that, I think, you're young still. And especially now, just because we have these prolonged adolescences, or someone once called them adolescents, essentially, I think a 27-year-old kid now is about what I was at 22. Because by about 23, I was, just completely in a different world. I'd gone to L'Abri by myself at that time. And this was the late 70s when hardly anyone I knew in California had gone to Europe. I knew only one other couple who had gone to Europe. Everyone else, all the rest of the people who were in the Jesus movement and the hippies and all these other people had no idea what was happening in Europe. And so it was, and that for me was stepping out into like, oh, where am I? This weird place where they have old buildings and strange festivals still. What is going on here? But that also gave me a real love for, it deepened my understanding. The more I understood of history, the more I understood fantasy worlds as well. So.
Sorry, you're going to say something?
No, go ahead.
I've definitely been doing that. It's like I got to give credit to like Jonathan Peugeot as well. Like I'd never heard anyone talk about stories and things and symbolism in that way. And like I'm definitely I've taken what I got from things like reading the Lord of the Rings, and yeah, it's like it's inspired me to like read more into history, or read into theology. Like, yeah, it's like I want more, you know, of
Right.
whatever it was that was in that
Mhm.
that Tolkien managed to sort of cook up, you know, with all the
Right.
sort of elements that he had to make that.
Well, let me stop for just a second and remind everyone what we're doing. We've actually made it. We're over $12,000 thanks to Roderick and Joseph and my friends Karsten and Rebecca and a guy named Jeff, who was a channel's follower and ended up moving here with some encouragement from the videos I make on Georgia. And but so we're doing well. I'm not going to stop because we've got to get the amount that PayPal takes out, and I'm not exactly sure what that is yet, but I feel it, believe me. And also like this guy Jeff said to me, keep going because you're good. You need more money for the things you can't see. The just the contingencies in life, and I can see at any moment something coming up. So so anyway, thank you for that. But if you want to continue to donate, please do. There's the PayPal link below and the GoFundMe link, and the GoFundMe actually gives me a slightly better rate. And so either one, though, it doesn't matter. They're not that different from each other. And thanks to all of you out there. Would anyone else like to come aboard? If you would, write a note saying, yeah, I'd like to come on, and we'll work it out. So, we'll go back to talking about that. Actually, let's watch a bit of something here. What are we going to watch? Okay, here's the thing. This is a group called the Dream Parade, and the name of the song is Give Me Something. And this is actually made up of the great-grandchildren, I think 3 of them, and their friends, of Francis Schaeffer at L'Abri in Switzerland. And the place they're walking around here is exactly where L'Abri is located in Switzerland, at the small mountainside village of Uemo. So we're going to watch that. Then we'll come back and we'll talk more fantasy and stuff. Again, if you're interested in coming on and joining us, just go ahead and put say, yes, Bern, I'd like to come on, and we'll work it out. And if you want to contribute more, please feel free to. Let's watch this.
Just make me frown, and I always want change.
The funny thing for me is that I know all the places in that video.
Really?
Yeah, it's nothing there is foreign to me at all.
Oh.
'Cause I've visited L'Abri about I guess about 8, 9 times. And I recommend people still go there. It's really an interesting place to think, and it doesn't matter your age. You know, I've been there with 60-year-old students, and I've been there with 18-year-old students, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's a nice
There's an
place.
English L'Abri, isn't there?
There is an English L'Abri down in Gretham, which I'm not sure exactly where it is. It's further south. I'm not sure which county it's in though. So, but yeah, it's a place you should check out if you have a free weekend or something.
Yeah.
So it looks like Miriam is going to come on. I haven't seen her reply to the email yet, but once she does, I will send her the invite. And she said she's just coming on for a little bit, but hey, there's room, so we'll deal with that. But yeah, fantasy. It's interesting. There's different kinds of fantasies at different types. And a lot of what Tolkien did was really popularized high fantasy. You know, and high fantasy is castles and dragons and worlds and stuff like that. Whereas then there's fantasies like Alice in Wonderland, which I've become much more attracted to, if for no other reason than everyone does the other one. Or did.
Yeah.
I think the market is saturated. Go ahead.
No, yeah, I'm agreeing with you. Yeah, that it's yeah, I've grown so tired of fantasy. It's always like rebellious young princess goes off to train to be an assassin. It's like, oh God, it's so tiresome. And I think it's like why I started to like get into like things like horror movies and stuff. I don't know what, like, I just found myself drifting into that, and now I wouldn't say I'm like I've watched super extreme stuff, but I think it's something about like having a kind of tolerance for weirdness. I seem to have a more of that, and yeah, and so I was like super interested into watch your videos about like the symbolism of horror and
of
saying
course
like horror's the most
know nothing
philosophical
about
genre. Like, yeah, that's that. I was like, okay, I gotta listen to this because
keep an eye on the Anadrome, because that's where a lot of my horror stuff is going to be. Because I notice if I put too much of that on the Anadromist, there's always a group of people who are basically like, Byrne, why are you doing this horror stuff?
Yeah.
But I understand it. It's intense imagery. I actually want to come up with, I actually have written this down, like, I think what it is, 20 or 25, a list of 25 horror films. A friend of mine, one of the people on the channel, Teddy from Israel, who came here for the gathering in Georgia, he asked, give me a list of horror films that you think are important. And I said, here it is chronologically. And that's probably the best way to appreciate it. And so I started with silent horror films, which I really love. And then went on to, a few of the classics of the Universal monsters. And then I finally ended up with, I said, don't jump ahead, because you don't want to start with Martyrs, which is at the very end. You will, if you do, what I've done is I've raised the water level for you here, the boiling point. And if you jump into Martyrs first, you're going to be in a world of hurt. Well, here's Miriam, and let's bring her on here. Hi, Miriam.
Hello.
Okay, so where are you from? I've seen you, hovering around in the background. Where are you from?
So I'm like, I grew up outside of Philadelphia, so in the suburbs, and now I live in more rural Pennsylvania. So
which part?
Lancaster.
Okay. I once went to Mechanicsburg, but I was visiting a senior village there. It was a very strange thing. And
there's a lot of those here.
Yeah. But I really love the landscape there. And one time I was also taking the train through, when I was actually moving from New York City to Alaska, the first part of my trip was across America on train. And I got to know this young Amish couple who were on the train. And I was surprised they were on the train. But then there's the whole Rumspringa thing. And so I realized about that as well. So tell me a bit about yourself. What do you do? Why are you here? Why do you like the channel? But don't do that first. Tell me about yourself.
Okay. Yeah, the question where I'm from is always a hard one to answer, because like I grew up outside, like I lived in the same house my whole life. Besides, then I went to college, obviously, and then now I live in a different place. But like my mom's Armenian. But she was born in Lebanon, moved to the US when she was 17 because of the Civil War. So like that's
I just want to say you have the kind of face I would see walking down the street here.
Yeah.
And have you ever been to Armenia?
Once, yeah, for when I was turned 18.
Cool.
Continue. Yeah, well, that's when I was first started watching your channel, and I was like, well, he lives in Georgia. I have to see if he's been to Armenia. And you had a video, and I remember watching it, and you were like, it's a cool place, but like I think the Georgians have it better. And I was like, I don't know, I'm not sure if I can still watch him.
Oh yeah.
But I stuck around.
Sorry. No, there is a bit of sibling rivalry between Georgia and Armenia. And there, for instance, everyone knows the Armenians became Christians first, but the Georgians say, well, we're not really sure about that. and they will each claim certain foods and such, but they're pretty like, okay, the Duduk is yours, Armenia, but we get polyphony, and so yeah, I feel like when I went to Armenia, it's like I actually was in Asia at that point. Whereas here, I feel like I'm in Europe. Sorry for being so honest on that video.
Well, no, and I had to accept it of like, well, I prefer. Oh, also, let me know if the noise gets bad because they're doing construction on my neighbor's house right now. Yeah. But yeah, you gotta accept the fact that there's rivalry too. Like, you live in Georgia, so I can't expect you to be on Armenia's side,
Yes. But even the way you say that sounds Armenian. Are you on our side? Yeah.
Right.
Poor Armenia is such a history.
And I mean, Georgia's at least, they're not our worst neighbor, so.
No. You've got several others in the nearby vicinity that are certainly much higher up. And you can't even go between Turkey and, I don't know how it works. There's certainly no transportation between Turkey and Armenia. So you have to go through Georgia to drive through. There's no trains that go between the two.
Right.
You can take mass transportation, public transportation, trains and stuff from Armenia down to Georgia and then in through the back door of Turkey. But
exactly.
The whole border. And did you go to Yerevan?
Yeah, that's where we were mostly staying because it was one of my like distant cousins got married, so they got married there.
The whole thing about Yerevan is here they are, the capital of Armenia, and they regularly are looking at their most holy mountain, and it's in Turkey. So tell me more. What else are you up to? I take it your father's not Armenian.
No, he's not. So he's from Texas, but he's not like he's from. Yeah, he's not. His dad was from New Jersey though, so he doesn't have an accent. But I was thinking about it I watched your video yesterday about the influences. And I always felt like the odd one out because my friends, you know, your parents' music choices tend to be your first main influence. And so with my friends, it was like, you know, whatever Christian music their family was listening to, plus like 70s and 80s pop music, whatever was popular in the time. But I knew none of that because for my mom, it was whatever was popular in Lebanon, which is some of the Lebanese singers and the French singers.
Yeah.
Plus, like, when my mom became a Christian, she was very into the like messianic music and stuff like that. So I listened to a bunch of like messianic Christian music growing up, and whatever Armenian worship music was coming out at the time.
Did you ever listen to people like Fairuz? Farid Al-Atrash?
I'm not familiar with her, but we listened to Mejda.
I have a whole section. Is he Egyptian? No, I thought he's Lebanese. I have a whole section at home of you're talking about Lebanon, and there is it's because Armenia is actually one of the kind of foundation stones of the classic Middle Eastern sound, you know, whereas once you get to Georgia, it all gets really weird again, which is why I love it here. It's because musically it's like sometimes I go like, yeah, there's a Middle Eastern sound there, and then I go like, well, what's that other thing going on there? And there's a Caucasian sound, which you find the same thing on the northern side of the mountains, but then Georgia has its deeply owned thing, which is what really attracted me here, especially the strange polyphony. And there's so many musical styles from each region of the country. So, but more.
Oh yeah, and then my dad, I mean, he grew up, you know, 70s, 80s, whatever, but he was not like, my dad likes classical music, and like he was a band kid, like he likes big band music, and he likes parody music. So
parody?
Yeah, like my dad like was a Weird Al fan.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've ever heard of PDQ Bach.
Oh yeah.
And like Oedipus Text, we have like the Oedipus Text CD.
I've got about 4 or 5 PDQ Bach albums at home.
Yeah, and so like Spike Jones.
Like I have a home in Alaska still, in my storage facility. This is what this is all about. So, did he like Spike Jones?
I think he listened to some Spike Jones. Yeah.
So hold on, I'm sending Roderick a link. So we'll have 4. He's just coming on briefly too, but here we go. And Roderick, I just sent it to you. By the way, you can still give here. I'll just keep going. We're doing good. Normally I was going to shut this off at midnight, which is in 8 minutes. But hey, folks, we are collecting money. I was going to say we need $865, but Roderick decided to put in $1,000 into the total. So now we have 12,135. I could be off on that amount, but there we are. And Roderick's going to come on here in a moment. He's in Nashville. So anyway, what do? You going to school or?
So well, I got married in August. So that's my new thing. And then I went to college. I got a major in psychology. But then I use that some in like my side job, money-making job. Right. But my main passion is I transitioned back into dance. So
until I do my dance stuff.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. That's part of why I think I especially like started watching your stuff, because I came, you know, I watched Paul Vanderklay and stuff. And then when I started watching your stuff, I was like, oh, this is the guy that actually could talk about, like, has things to say about dance, and like the puppetry connection to dance. I just already learned a lot.
One of my close friends here is a principal dancer for one of the ballet companies here. So let's bring on Roderick. We'll be back with you. Hi, Roderick. Greetings.
Hello there. Greetings. Can you hear me?
Yeah. You look vaguely familiar. Have you been on Paul's channel?
Yeah, here and there.
Yeah.
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 Don't let me interrupt.
The eyes are glowing, but I
Yeah.
figure you have eyes. So,
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt Miriam though. She was telling a good story.
yeah, well, let me continue with that a moment, and then we will come to you. And so you're really interested in dance, and
Yeah.
So have you continued with it, or are you more on a spectator level?
So yeah, right now I'm in a pre-professional company. It's a Christian contemporary company.
Okay.
So Pennsylvania is one of the hubs for Christian dance companies.
Okay.
We currently have like 4 pre or professional level companies, all obviously really small and local, but like compared to some of the states that have none, we have at least 4, and then we have a couple other studios that do that. So right now I'm training, it's like Monday through Thursday mornings. We dance and we have class and rehearsal, and then I teach tonight, which is why I have to finish lesson planning soon. But yeah, so that's kind of my main focus right now, of just working on my own craft, and then also getting better at teaching. And choreography is kind of like my long-term, what I'm most passionate about, but right now I'm in the more performing and teaching season.
Cool. Well, I think you're going to find when I do get to dance and stuff, I've got 2 areas which have been things I've thought about quite a bit that I haven't even like really put on the table yet. I've got quite a few actually. Like I could spend session after session just on comedy, but also dance is one, but also fashion is another. And and I've been reading more and more about architecture and design recently, because I'm starting to see how these things are all connected. And so I get interested in different periods, so that, and one of the things that's really strange about this whole period in which we're all interlinked this way is it's like someone took all the cultures of the past, decided to sell them through McDonald's, and then put them in a Cuisinart and splattered them against the walls of everyone's lives. And so we don't have a unifying theme. And when people do start, for instance, I mean, here in Georgia, there still is an aspect that is very strongly rooted in what their culture is. But you can see that the arrival, particularly, the computer, television, that sort of stuff, but the smartphone was really the thing that really started to undermine it. And a friend of mine told me, 10 years ago, he says, I would go into a restaurant and you'd hear Georgian men singing together. And today, so often they're just sitting at the table looking and scrolling. So let's go to Roderick. And I haven't forgotten you, don't worry. But let me know if you have to go, and I'll say a couple more things to you. Likewise, Joseph. But Roderick, so tell me a little bit about yourself, and thank you.
Vern. I remember the first time you came on Paul's channel, and I can't say I've been a completely devoted follower of yours, but I've just I'll drop in once in a while and
that's
see
good.
What you're up to. And then once you started this project, I started paying much closer attention, because it's sort of like your white whale. It's like watching you try to land this. So I was, and I got to say, I mean, I love, as I mentioned in my comment, I love your appreciation for all things culture, but music in particular. And I've been the part I've been enjoying the most is all this folk music that you've been sharing. And something that I sort of started to realize gradually over time is how kind of all folk music from wherever it is in the world has all these kind of similarities. This kind of call response. There's you can go to the Appalachian Mountains and listen to some of the early Americana stuff. You can be in, Veracruz, Mexico, and you can hear something that actually has a lot of the same similarities and all these kind of convergences of influences. And it kind of reminded me of the story I wanted to share with you. so I've been very involved with the nonprofit world, and a lot of music education programs of one kind or another. Started a few of them, and some of them have worked out. And so I was serving on a grant making board that would give out grants to support various kinds of arts education, music education programs. And we got presented with this unusual. This was in Southern California, where I'm from and where I was living at the time. And it was a group of Mexican folk musicians who I think they were asking for like $1,500. It wasn't very much money, right? Yeah. And their proposal basically was like gas money, and just to bring them up to California and to do these outreach programs in the schools. And the music, I had never heard of this before at the time, but it was called Son Jarocho music. If you've heard of La Bamba, you know that song?
Yeah. You're talking about something further down, like probably past Monterey on that side.
Its origins are in the Veracruz region. There's kind of convergences of African influences, and
I've got some recordings from that area.
Yeah, and most people think of mariachi music. That's the other folk music of Mexico that is become much more commercial.
Yeah, this would be further south.
Right, and so I didn't know anything about it, but one of their proposals was that at the end of this weekend, on a Saturday night, they were going to put on a fandango. And so I was instantly bewitched, because I just like the sound of it. Right? The idea of so I'm like, well, and they wanted someone to go and represent, like, we were going to give a little bit of money and support it. So I said, I'll go, right? I volunteered. And a very inauspicious event. It was like on a basketball court in a school in a neighborhood of town. We're setting up folding chairs ahead of time. It's a pretty basic event. But I see them. They bring out this wooden platform with like little castanets nailed to the bottom of it, and then they bring out like a donkey jaw, like with like the teeth are loose. So they would they'd use a deer antler, and they'd scrape the teeth, and it was like right. So they create this, and the women were wearing these beautiful dresses, and the moon was full. It was like one of these, right? And as it gets dark, I'm just completely bewitched by this music, right? And so I asked around, I was like, can someone teach me how to play one of these things? And so I met one of the musicians who is also a luthier, and these are handmade instruments. And so he made me an instrument, and for like 6 months, I play guitar, so I could sort of pick it up,
Right. And was that the bass instrument?
Well, that's right. That's Guitarra del Son is one of them, and so this is what's called the jarana. And I dug around in my closet. I haven't looked at this in a long time, but I'm like, I'm going to come on to the burn. I'm going to do a little show and tell. So he made this for me, and it's one solid piece of wood.
Wow.
So I'm kind of working backwards here.
That's incredible.
Like where normally you'd have a neck joint right here. This is all one piece of wood, and it's carved out, and then just put a top on it, right? And it's got nine strings, and it's the rhythm section basically. And so it's like a 6/8. It's this syncopated. It's a special kind of strumming you do. So
I'm hearing it in my mind.
Yeah. So it's like down, up, up, down, down, up. You get this kind of, and if you have a lot of people doing that, the whole thing starts to pulse, right? So then we started putting on these little fandangos around town. So for like a couple of years, I got really into that world, and it was one of the most magical. Here I am. I fit in like I don't fit in, right? But I just loved it, and so it was one of my more memorable little excursions into various kind of music education.
Well, one of the main features of music, people. At some point I gave a lecture at L'Abri called "What is Music," which sounds, is that pretentious? But no, it isn't, because what it is I don't answer the question like it's X philosophical thing. What I say is, let's look at what it does. So one of the things it does is brings people together. It's the same with dance. Dance is like that too. They are things that are just a part of who we are. And one of the things that's happened as a result of technology is we've been carved off more and more from these things. So you look like you're old enough to remember the folkies from the 1960s. And
thanks
what
for
they
that.
were doing sometimes they would bring the actual musicians, on stage and such, but they were often doing the music as performance. And so there's a big difference between going to a concert and, say, hearing Joan Baez sing and actually being in a place where people sing naturally. That is to say, and what she would do is a very even concert pitch kind of version of a song. So it's very pretty and such. Whereas if you hear someone actually who is from an area do something, there's a lot more, unpredictability and wildness in it, because especially if it's really regional, it's going to have all these little things in it that are different than the next region over and such. And yet it seems to me that's the way life's supposed to be. And I don't know if you ever saw my Owen Barfield, What is Final Participation video, but he talks about essentially what's happened as a result of what he calls the idolatry of the materialist world being brought in through the scientific method and such, but in a really kind of careless way. And so I don't think he would say that the early scientists were materialistic, because they weren't. But once you just focus on that, you eventually strip all this extra stuff off. And when you add technology to it, it isolates us all. So now we're all like doing this, we've got this thing in our ear, or we've got it at home. But one of the reasons I moved to Georgia, of course, was two reasons. One, music, the other, dance. And they also have puppets. So and I've heard outside of my window here, guys singing a supra up in an apartment next to me. And I'm just sitting there going like, oh, this is incredible, because it fills the entire courtyard. And these guys have amazing voices. And I've seen dancers here that just blow my mind as far as their skill, the traditional dancers, and in many different ways. And so.
Yeah, one of the things I loved about that culture is they would have these or fandangos and other events. They call them encuentros, which are a little bit larger events, but they would go on for days, and the musicians would just keep playing, and you'd take a rest and you go and have food, and there'd be families around, and the whole thing was very, very communal.
Right.
And essentially all folk music has that same origin, right? It's
well, that's the thing, is that there's tribal music, which is its own thing, and then it develops into folk music, and then eventually, if it gets really good, it turns into classical music. All this other stuff like jazz and rock and electronic and stuff is a totally different story. And this is what I've spent most of my life trying to understand. But the classical music usually represents the highest spiritual values of a people. So you can talk about Japanese or Indonesian or Indian, and certainly Western classical music. But what's happened is we've lost so much of what welded these things together. And when I'm going to do something related to a pyramid soon. I'm not sure what I want to call it. I used to call it the folk matrix, but I'm thinking it needs a better name. But it's about how culture is all kind of connected with these different parts. And the top part is the artistic or meaning quality, and one side is the what you might call decorum, or where it fits in society, its function. And the other side is its ability to communicate, or what we would later call its entertaining function. And what happened as a result of the modernist dilemma is the top went off into this other realm, which eventually became pure philosophy, which then left these things to drift apart. So now the only real functional music we have is, if I get on the metro here, I hear a bell that goes ding dong. Cheerleading is kind of a remnant of functional music. But it used to be all music had some kind of function. And even entertainment. The whole point of entertainment music was to make you laugh, to bring us together, to tell stories, to prepare, to keep the history alive, to educate the children, all these things. And then what happened was entertainment became everything. and then eventually entertainment becomes the McDonald's of music. So,
do you remember that there was a book that came out maybe 10 plus years ago now? So I think it was Music, the Brain, Ecstasy, or Music, Ecstasy, the Brain, something like that. And it tried
this is your brain on music.
I think this preceded that one, actually. That
Okay.
This very similar concepts where they, sort of tried to go all the way back to the origins of sound itself and evolution as our ears move from the top of our head to the side of our head, and all of that.
I tend to not like those scientific explanations, because what they're doing is they're trying to say this is in the blood, whereas I'm sitting there going like, no, it's in the word. It's in the melody. The strangest thing about humanity is that there doesn't seem to be another creature on Earth that actually hears the harmonic relations of the notes.
Well, and the point I was going to make about that book, I probably read 3 or 4 chapters because I'm terrible with finishing books. I probably felt like I got the point and moved on. Right. But one of the things I really remembered about it is, what is it about sitting in a movie theater, and the lights come down and the strings swell, and then all of a sudden you're hearing the sniffing and like people are crying. Right. It's happening to everybody at once. And it attempted to try to understand that, like what's happening there, right? It attempted to sort of, find its evolutionary roots in something that, that communal thing that happens where we all we're having a feeling. We don't exactly know where it comes from, but we know we're feeling it.
Okay, well, I have to stop and write another number on the board. So I'm going to put this to a solo shot for a moment. I'll be right back with all of you. And then we'll probably start to wind this down because it's past midnight for me here. And in 2 nights, I have to do this later. So, but anyway, I'll be back. Hold on. And Richard Lund is going for MVP status 2. He just donated another $100. And let's see what that does for us on the big board here. Let me shift over to the other camera and write that down there. Okay, come. Where'd you go? Oh, we'll use you. Okay, so, that's still me. I didn't go to the other one. All right. Okay, so we'll just write it over here. So we now have $12,235, and we're not done because we got more to get, but we've done it. I mean, I could stop right now and feel pretty happy, but I'm not going to. So I'm going to keep doing this a while longer because there is more to get, especially if I want to eat on my trip. So, okay, so we're going to go back here, and is everyone okay? Just a moment. Thank you, Richard. I really appreciate that. And it looks like you downloaded your okay, where am I? It looks like you downloaded your music, so that's good. Your Georgia music. Roderick, are you sure you don't want a couple hundred Georgian music files? It's a revelation.
I'll take anything you send me, but like I said, I didn't. It wasn't a quid pro quo.
I understand, but you got to get it. You got it.
Anything you send me, I'm sure I'll enjoy. But I didn't. That wasn't why.
So I want to get back to Joseph. Did you have any more questions or thoughts as you've been listening?
Yeah. So I came with a sort of idea of a question, and then I think it was it you, Roderick, who put in the chat about the marriage crisis?
Oh, that was just to help Bern locate me in PVK's universe. So yeah, I've been on a few times about that. We've had with Catherine and Eamon and Paul, we've been doing some marriage crisis conversations.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, I'm a sort of notorious lurker, and I've been sort of dropping in and out of these channels over the years. But yeah, I sort of came back onto this chap who's involved with all this. He's I can't say his surname. Mark. Then it begins with an L.
Lefevre?
You know, yeah. He talks about the intimacy crisis, and he's been talking that for a while now, I guess. But it was like the first I'd seen of him talking about that, and so yeah, it was that really sort of captured my thinking, and as you were talking, Bern, this thing of you've got your matrix, and I suppose it's this. What out of your matrix, what really concerns me now is this thing of decorum, what you just mentioned. And so, yeah, I didn't really have a formed question, but I wondered if you could maybe talk around that a bit.
Well, I'm going to do, when I come back from Alaska, because I'm not going to do it before then, I've got it written out to do a whole video on this thing, because I've assumed it underneath various things I've done. I do in the How We Got Here video, I believe it's the one for the aughts, from 1999 to, or around then to about 2010 or so. I talk about it in there with the end of the rock and roll epic, and it's in the music one too that covers that period. But I'm going to talk about it. I realized, okay, I assume this thing when I look at everything actually. So I'm going to go ahead and do an actual video on it and discuss it in more depth. So save your big questions for that. The basic thing is this, and this goes back to what I was trying to say about Owen Barfield, but forgot to. These things were all united. In every culture, they were united. So for instance, if you go back to Bach he certainly has lots of meaning, but he always has a purpose to what he's doing too. There's always a place for what he's doing, and it communicates. So that Hans Rickmacher once said, the people who went into Bach's church didn't come out wondering, what's this crazy music? We don't understand it. They would instead say, oh, that was really beautiful music. But did you hear the tenor? He was kind of off today. That is to say, they understood it as a native thing, just as people understood Shakespeare. I mean, we often say, oh, Shakespeare's so hard, but nobody in Shakespeare said it that way. They all, even the people who weren't that educated got what he was talking about because the language was denser. And so I think that the unity of what was always traditional everywhere has been broken apart by both philosophy and this kind of nihilistic approach to art and culture that has come out of modernism and postmodernism. So, but what Barfield says is essentially the things that used to be natural basically get killed by this kind of materialistic kind of weighing and measuring of everything. And you can look at art as doing that as well, pulling things apart, looking for the final abstraction of everything. And he says, so that eventually what used to be natural, we now have to choose to do. Which means, how do you have conversations? Well, we're doing this here, but how do you have it back in the real world? How do you, I still haven't quite figured out, how do you have, how do you reintegrate music and dancing and art back into this again? How do we recreate this? Not in an artificial way. I often hear of people, speaking of dancing, Miriam, I've heard of people who take these English country dance classes and stuff. And that's nice if you want to learn it. But if it just becomes this little geek thing that's done on the side and doesn't get integrated back into an actual community, our problem is we often define communities by special interests, which is a very strange way to define a community. One of the nice things about Alaska, and here, I was just thinking this today, in Alaska, it's small enough that, I would go down to the post office and someone would say, how was your trip to Europe, Vern? One of the postal workers. I would go to a store and I would talk with someone. I would see one of the fishermen and we would talk. And that's the community. the community has to have some relationship to geography. This internet stuff, you know, we often use, you know, the Black community, the gay community, the internet community, the PVK community, the little corner and stuff. It's an approximation of something we're missing. But for me, the goal is always to get back to the presence, the embodiment, you know. So one of the reasons I chose to come to Georgia is that the supra is this ritualized meal that they have, which often includes all of those things. That is to say, it would be not out of place for someone to stand up and just start someone to start playing a song and someone to start dancing during this long 6-hour meal. Or someone to tell a story, or someone, the toasts here, you know, in the West, the toasts are, well, here's to so-and-so, and I really hope so-and-so, and blah, blah, blah. And that's, whereas the toast, I figured it out immediately and did something that took about 3 or 4 minutes to get out. And this wasn't like a wedding, it's like a standard supra toast. And when I was done, the older men said to my friend, who translated for me, he said, he's one of us. And I just felt like, oh, you got me. You know, that made me feel good. And I was just at a philosophical 2 weeks ago with my friend Lasha, is a philosopher. And so we went through this, but rather than singing and stuff, we were all talking about philosophical ideas. And to me, that's why I'm here. It doesn't happen all the time. The smartphone is killing it, like it's killing so much of human connection. You know, it's bringing us together and throwing us apart. So,
just to chime in on that for a second, Vern, you know, it's easy to get discouraged, right? To see all the atomization. I think that the intimacy crisis as a frame is a decent frame. Some Westerners might recoil at the word intimacy because it has a lot of other connotations, but in psychological terms, into me see, right? Like that, you know, to see and be seen, right? To feel connected to other people. And as easy it is to get discouraged, the point you just made, well, what we all agree on is food. And so that's a great place to, is like sort of the first building blocks of maybe reconnecting to community is just planning community dinners. And like Chad did with his denim dinner recently, we just invited some people over to have dinner in the basement. And we're doing something similar, my wife and I here, just organizing events around food. And then you can bring, once you have that and you have, you know, camaraderie, well, then you can bring an artist in, or then you can bring some musicians in, right? And now all of a sudden, exactly. Yeah.
And another thing I figured is bringing games, and not like hide and go seek for adults, you know, that kind of thing, because that brings people together. So, Miriam, I'm going to get out of here soon, but let's, Miriam, that's the name of every girl here.
I'll respond to that too, though, because my friend, like, I have family who call me that. So
every Mary type person here is a Miriam, and the way I say is like if I'm walking down the street and I say Miriam, a quarter of the girls will turn around. If I say Nino, which is Saint Nino, is the woman who brought Christianity here, another quarter will turn around. And then there's about 10 other names. And then there's a few people who have weird names. I just met a Nita, not Anita, but Nita. And then I have a friend named Tamta. So it's, but yeah. So, but what do you think? And you can see where I'm going with dance and such here. I think you're getting an idea.
Yeah. I think one of my, things that is always hard to balance when thinking about bringing dance and using it like in a larger context is in any arts discussion, especially Christian arts discussion, I feel like dance generally doesn't get brought in the conversation because people don't really know what to do with it. And the thing that I love about dance in a lot of ways is that it has meaning and purpose behind it, but also because it's not a literal spoken thing, or it's like there's everybody can get a different layer out of it, which is what I like when I watch dance or when I choreograph. Even I know my students, they get different layers out of things. But I think my challenge then is always, how do you actually balance that? Because there's people who have no understanding of dance and how it works and what it's trying to say. Because there is a lot of symbolism in dance and a lot of like set things. And then yeah, it's that balance of like making it very clear what you're saying through the movement and that more abstract space.
Yeah. I would say bringing dance into church is a bit like bringing puppetry into church, in the sense that both can be done very poorly. And is it the place for dance as from a Christian perspective? For instance, the Council of Trent banned puppets from being inside the church. But they didn't ban them from being outside the church. So they continued with their nativity plays and passion plays outside. I have a friend here who is a principal dancer at one of the modern ballet companies here. She is totally a Christian, you know, but she does stuff that, as she says, I wouldn't want to do this in a church because this is not for that. And she, in fact, she said once, when she was traveling with the company and they asked to do this one particular ballet inside a church, she felt she didn't know what to do about that. And so what she did was, when she did it, but then she came back and talked to her priest and said, you know, what should I have done? Because what she's doing, well, it's complicated. Maybe sometime we'll discuss it more, because there's a lot of issues related to the body and such. But also, even the concept of social dancing and the church is a complex thing. I'm not sure we know what we're doing with it yet at all. I think there was you know, of course, you're probably one of those people like me who likes the old Jane Austen movies and such. And you see the people getting together for the country dance. And on a musical level, the interesting thing about that is that the musicians were not the focus of the dance. They're, you know, in all those movies, they're just somewhere in the back playing. You know, we just want them to be good. We didn't come there to sit and do what we do now, as we go and we sit and watch the stage and then people wiggle around, you know. And I think that, you know, and it's very hard. How do we get real dancing back? That's a complicated thing. And I think, but what we're doing here is talking about, how do I bring this to my area, to my small group of people, to my community, to my family? Those are precisely the questions we have to ask. And I think if we keep poking at it, things will emerge, you know. But there is one group of Christians who has traditionally danced during worship services for thousands of years. Do you know who they are?
No, I mean, I know the Messianic congregations often do Israeli folk dance in their services.
Yeah, but that's
a little different.
That's an add-on, though.
Yeah.
No one was doing Israeli
what about
dance
the Shakers? Did the Shakers dance?
No, well, they're kind of extinct.
Yeah,
but,
they didn't survive.
No,
They
it's
did.
the Ethiopian church.
Yes.
Go look at an Ethiopian service. There's a couple of really good videos on YouTube, and you'll see they do these things where they kind of like go back and they go forward, and then they kind of go to the side. It's not social dancing, and it's not performance dancing, but it is dancing in the mood of their service. And it's really fascinating to me. And I remember when I first saw it in a documentary, I said, what's going on here? This is really interesting, you know. But in the Western churches, we lost that kind of stuff a long time ago. So bringing it in has a lot of issues related to it. So, well, everyone, thank you so much. I can't go on forever because I've only got a limited, I think I just used up another half hour of my Streamyard time there. I've only got 12 hours for free. And I think now I have 2.5 hours left, which I'll save for Saturday. Roderick, thank you so much for pushing.
Congratulations.
If anyone else wants to contribute, please do. I will be back on Saturday. And
keep us posted if you run into
now showing up.
if
anyone wants to contribute, we now have $12,235. I need to keep going because PayPal and GoFundMe take money out of this. I wish they did it the way I think it's Kickstarter. Somebody does. I used one service once that said, "Do you want to give X amount?" And then there's this much extra for the thing, so you knew that how much money was going to me versus how much is going to the facility, the faculty. But
keep us posted, Bernd. And maybe even while you're on your journey.
Oh, I will. I'm going to do a series of videos. I'm calling them the Cargo Diaries, and we're going to do that. And I'm just going to, why not? Kind of crazy stuff. And I'm sure it'll be fascinating. I'm sure there'll be moments where I feel like, it always happens, but what I've learned, it's just like life. Traveling is like life. It's like if you sit there and say, what if something happens? Then you never go anywhere. You never do anything. But my thought is like, well, let me get myself into a difficult situation and just pivot out somehow,
Quick question. Did you ever see Michael Palin's Around the World in 80 Days?
I've got all of his series.
It's so making me think of that, right? Because particularly the first one, right? I mean, he was just winging it, right? So makes it a lot more interesting.
Inspired by those, they get a little more boring towards the end because he wasn't traveling as much. But trust me, mine will not be boring. It'll be crazy. At a certain point, when I get to Alaska, I don't know what the weather is going to be, anything. And I have to get there soon. But now I'm told that who knows how long this will take. I'm just like, whatever. If someone in Georgia says, sorry, you can't bring them in, I'm just like, whatever. I'm just ready for everything. And what I've learned in life is when things change, you don't pretend like you were in the place you were 5 minutes ago. Like when I remember having this, the tires shred on a car back in a van back in Alaska, and I'm trying to get 14 people to a cruise ship before it takes off. My immediate thought was, okay, we're now here. Here is making sure we don't go off into the river, into the side of a cliff. The next here is I have to get these people there, and then I have to prevent this car from being hit by all the traffic coming around a blind corner. So I stayed there for 2 hours. But it's just like my mind immediately said, I'm no longer at this thing. I'm at this thing. And I've always learned that that's a good way to deal with stuff, rather than holding on to the things that are slipping out from under you, because you can't control everything. But as soon as you realize, oh, there's a new here. So Miriam, we will stay in touch. And I think I would like to have a conversation with you sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Specifically about dance and such, but other things too. And Joseph, thank you, very faithful, and I look forward. I really appreciate seeing your faces, and thank you everyone out there. Thanks, Chad. Glad to hear it. I'm going to be back Saturday evening, same time, same place. Meet me then, and let's try to get this further up so I feel a little bit of a comfort pillow. And thank you, Roderick, for your generous.
Only my mother called me Roderick when she was angry with me. So
Rod?
Rod's fine. Yeah.
Rod. Yeah. Well,
yeah, somehow it's on here as Roderick. I don't know.
It says Roderick on there.
I know it's probably my Google name or something. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think of Roderick Usher and Edgar Allan Poe. So to me, it's like, oh, what a cool name. Okay, so I'm going to say farewell to you and then just play one more song and get us out of here. Drobit, we will meet again. All right, so thank you so much, all of you. If you want to give, there's still time. Let me see if anyone's given over on the GoFundMe page. Thank you, Richard, for the 100. Now we're still there. If you want to give something there, feel free. And let's play. And thank you to all of you I didn't get a chance to talk to because you were here. So Rod and Miriam and Joe. Is it Joseph? Joe. And let's play one more song. And when this song is over, we will be done. What should I play? I've got a crazy one there, but I'm not going to torture you with that. Let's play a little stride piano, boogie woogie style with Albert Ammons and Pete Johnson from the late 1940s, early 1950s. Great stuff. Double.
There isn't